Hello out there. I'm the oldest nerd, and with me is Professor O. And today we're going to talk about the cult film. We'll call it a cult film, science fiction, Silent Running, featuring Bruce Dern and almost nobody else. There were some other people in it, but for most of the film, we just see Bruce Dern and a couple of droids. So we're going to talk about this today. And as we were saying right before we started here, was that we're talking about a specific period of time, 1972, when this film was made, and it was the beginning of a real environmental movement. We still had hippies, we still had anti-war protests and things like this. This was a very different time in our history where we go from this straight-laced 50s kind of thing to the counterculture 60s. And Bruce Dern in this is a method actor, and so he becomes kind of a wild-eyed uh, ex-hippie environmentalist, and maybe about what some people thought of them at the time.
Right. That's what when you're saying I didn't realize he was a method actor. That is,
Yeah,
but you can completely see that in the way he acts. All of a sudden, when you said that, I was like, man, yes, you could completely see that, and he really embraced the part that became who he was. To the point that I wonder. I'm going off center a little bit here, but I almost think you can certainly cast yourself into a certain type of mold, and this
yes.
sure helped put Bruce Dern into more parts like this in a way, that kind of convicted, driven person that's on edge and a little bit off kilter.
Yeah, he had a
And
daughter. He had a daughter that died when she was 2 years old, just a couple of years before this film was made,
oh
and
man,
his melancholy basically was real, and he
he
just
could channel
channeled it into
that.
this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. That completely makes sense. Man, back thinking, now that you got that, he would describe it was kind of a strange, and apparently he did some ad libbing.
yes,
I have heard the entire poker game with the robots was an idea he put in there, whole cloth. That scene was
yeah,
not in there, and he thought we need some levity at this point, and so he was helping with the writing, at least on set. But that line of a little girl holding a leaf, a little girl will never have the chance to hold a leaf. That sure sounds like what it would feel like if you had
mhm.
lost a daughter who's never
that
going to
was
get
that
that
was
chance.
exactly it.
Man, whoa, that
Now,
is, it makes me want to rewatch it with that in mind. That's wow.
yeah, yeah, it kind of does. And you have to say there were no slouches writing this. This Michael Cimino and Stephen Bochco
True.
were two of the writers on this, along with Derek
Right.
Washburn, and the so the writing was pretty tight, really,
Right.
and worked on that level. What's interesting? This was an experiment by Universal Pictures at the time.
Right.
They Easy Rider had come out a couple of years earlier. It was an independent film, and it was tremendous success. And Universal, the people at Universal thought it might be interesting to see what you could do if you could make a picture cheap, $1 million. Take $1 million,
Right.
make a picture with it, give the director pretty much carte blanche within the budget, and let them do whatever they're going to without any studio interference, and make it look like an independent film, and reap the benefits. And out of
Right.
that came this film and another film which you may have heard of, American Graffiti.
Right.
American Graffiti
Right.
became a huge success. This one was a huge failure. On $1 million, they made about $1,000 off of this worldwide. So it was, at least in its first run. It's now
Right.
picked up cult status in later years, but at that time it was one of the not exactly successes of Universal's experiment.
And that I was watching Douglas Trumbull, and he was trying to remember all the other films. This was a Douglas Trumbull interview from like 2011, and he
Yeah.
was trying to remember the other films that were involved in this experiment. But 5 directors, everybody got $1 million, and I think it sounds like they tried an extra experiment along with every film, and the extra experiment they tried with him was no big marketing at the end of the movie when it comes out. They said they were there, can a movie survive on word of mouth? Would word of mouth be just as good as a marketing campaign? Can we save a lot of money here? And the answer is word of mouth was not as good at all. But they learned from that experiment. But I kind of felt, on the one hand, it's great to get $1 million and freedom to, you can tell the freedom's there because it's such a work of art and which can be, it's got some warts because it's such a work of art. I mean, somebody, professional, maybe smoothing things out could have helped in a couple of places. But on the other hand, it's probably better for being left alone. It's fascinating, but that other experiment did not help it. They learned from that. They decided, this word of mouth thing just doesn't work. But
given all of that, still, Douglas Trumbull was given a shot at directing. At this point, he was a visual designer. He did a lot of work on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and otherwise would have been just an art director in another film. So being able to direct this was a big step for him. And because they had limited budget, he had to hire basically college students to do some of the heavy lifting on the special effects and things like that. And one of those people was John Dykstra.
Right.
Who went on to be the special effects guy for Star Wars, the original Star Wars Episode 4, and then Battlestar Galactica.
Got his start right there. And I was trying to remember how Trumbull had spotted Dykstra. And it's not coming to me, but
I've heard something in an interview about that.
He spotted Dykstra and and gave Dykstra some good responsibilities, things to do, and then he just parlayed that, and eventually of course had his own company, and I love the way Dykstra's career goes a little bit different than ILM. They're different types of movies. They're really creative. And but it's just a different kind of look, and to me, even Douglas Trumbull it's just a different kind of. Although he's becomes part of ILM too, but it's still a different kind of look. And I wonder if Dykstra had worked on the Andromeda Strain. I'm not sure.
He did.
I'm not sure.
I believe he did.
Oh,
I pulled up.
Maybe
I pulled
that
up,
was the connection.
I pulled up his thing, and he was. Checking that. Come on.
I'm working on. Yeah, because what the heck? Let's see. American Graffiti obviously was.
That was Rodney Art, of course, and got the wrong thing here.
Let's see.
There we go. John Dykstra. He was. I see what I did. This computer works perfectly smoothly until we start talking, and then it suddenly gets gummed up and won't operate.
You're right. I am. Whoops. Hang on. I'm just hoping
he did. He did, of course, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Life Force. Let's see, How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh my goodness!
X-Men: Dark Phoenix, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, X-Men: Apocalypse, Godzilla, Django Unchained, and let's see, running down Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, My Stepmother is an Alien.
One thing I'll just have to post in comments is the other 3 directors that got $1 million. That's Bucket, from Universal, and kind of their story. That sounds like I mean, what a fascinating thing to do. But and then of course the
Yes, he
whole,
did the Andromeda strain actually just a year before Silent Running.
right, Dykstra, and then it met Trumbull there, and so they get that going. And there was another good effects person that joined on their team, and also I think ended up
Okay.
working with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Um, but just
Okay,
and
here are the films that are bothering you: The Hired Hand, The Last
oh,
Movie, Taking Off, and American Graffiti.
that's the other four. Oh, the other
Yes,
three besides American Drift. Thank you. We apologize for that silence involved.
but it's interesting just the careers that it started, and
Yes.
it's an interesting little story here on the drones. The drones actually were made out of ABS plastic. They were about 20
Right.
pounds, and they used amputees, people with no
Double
legs,
and
and
yes.
the legs on these were actually their hands, pushing them
Yes.
around, and so they had this kind of waddle that they did,
Yeah.
and they I mean, it was very believable. They did actually some ad libbing as well in order to show just what they were capable of doing in the costumes, and it really worked very well. And
Oh, yeah.
a lot of technical stuff that was done. Douglas Trumbull's father was he did some of the visual things on The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And
Goes
so
back
they
to the Wizard
called
of
him
Oz.
in, and he devised the device that could play pool, and the some of the movable parts and things on the drones, and that was something that the drones themselves interested George Lucas, who would make Star Wars fairly soon, and he basically asked Douglas Trumbull and John Dykstra if it was okay he could use their idea in order to create R2D2.
Ah.
So later, when Battlestar Galactica came out and Fox sued Universal for stealing Star Wars idea, they countersued saying that Star Wars stole R2D2 from them.
Wow. And you track it back to
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's a and no those yeah and I definitely had heard where the Lucas had seen some of the artwork for this
Yeah.
film for Silent Running and the double heavy. They work so well. As a first time viewer, and I do not think I saw this in theaters, but I saw it in the 70s. It's been, but I was always thinking, how do you do? I was thinking they were purely mechanical, but I was thinking, how do you do those movements which really look like some sort of industrial mechanical connected to human, which is what they are with double
Yes.
amputees, and it just works like no other bot that I've ever seen. It just the humanity that they can exude. I think it brings so much to the film that you think of they're much more than a detail, but still you'd be thinking of some big plot points in this film. But when people think about this film, they think about those bots, and the humanity of those robots really comes out. When we lose one, it's sad. I mean, it's really
Yes.
sad. And then I still have trouble with the idea. Bruce Dern is such a conflicted, complicated character. I think I have trouble with some of his decisions, and one decision that his character makes is to leave. I forget which one he left. Louis or Dewey or Huey goes off. He takes one and sends the healthiest one off with the biodome
Right.
at the plot spoiler, but at the end of the film.
Well, yeah,
And you're
he
thinking,
had gone for a ride in that little buggy, which, by the way,
oh
was
yes,
another thing that Trumbull's father built from the ground up.
engineered by his dad. Those
Yeah.
things are incredible,
Yeah.
electric powered, unbelievably fast. Just powerful, and I bet they had a ball playing on that aircraft carrier. Driving around with those things. But those things, I mean, man, those things were fast. Could turn on a dime. He built it. I think it sounds like he built it from almost scratch.
Yes.
And it's basically the forerunner to the little, they're not golf carts, but the kind of carts we have today that are very efficient and fast.
Yeah, yeah. I can't
And
tell you what we called them either, but yeah, we've seen something like that out there. That was
but yeah, Bruce Dern, his character Lowell runs into one of them, and
right,
then
and basically damages him beyond repair. So he decides that he's going to keep him with him
yeah,
as he destroys the ship, but and leave the one healthy drone out there to water the plants. By the way, the watering can belonged to Laura Dern.
that's right. His
Was five
that's
years old at the time, and she went to see the movie afterwards and started crying when he left. They had to leave the movie early when he ran over this. Why would you do such a thing? She said to him, and so that was the
oh,
the end
to
of her
take
viewing
his
her end of her first viewing of that movie.
maybe that might have affected him because there's an interview where he's talking about things that we couldn't do today with this film. That just the things, how kind of almost thinking of how often people would smoke in the '60s, or
Yeah,
something that maybe wouldn't. It's too incorrect. And he mentioned, oh, we couldn't use the water pail anymore. A little girl's water pail used in that way. And I'm thinking, no, I don't think that would catch the censors too bad. But now that it's Laura Dern's water pail and what he went through, I think that almost might be a personal story because it didn't bother me. It looks it looks kind of there are parts. It looks kind of strange that he's using a water pail like that, but it also fits his personality. The more you look at who Lowell was in the film. Uh, but
yeah. I'm not certain he was really a botanist. I think that he was just kind of hired as a gardener because they don't show him having great knowledge of his late figuring out that they needed light in order for the plants to grow. I would think
that
would be
bothered both of us.
That would be kind of early on. I would have figured that out,
Yeah.
and yet he didn't. And so I'm thinking, maybe he's a little too close to the ground, digging in holes for trees that he hadn't looked up to see if there wasn't enough light.
That's a good point, and it reminds me of that scene where this was where the robots are trying to teach the robots how to plant a tree, and first you got to dig the hole, then drop the tree. But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, it does show him looking at manuals a lot, and it's funny, they were all they're all old school, big giant paper manuals, not computerized manuals,
Right.
and so I think early on, one of those manuals might have had to do with plants or something, but that's something that I wish they would have made a little bit more clear. I know they didn't want to do a lot of exposition, but that why wouldn't he, as a botanist, and maybe he's not a botanist, realize that the sun, as we go further away from the sun, the plants are dying, because that does hit you. I saw one critique, and the critique mentioned that, oh no, this is an allegorical thing, and I'm with the sun. And I'm thinking, no, he just should have known.
Yeah, I think he should have known. I love the interiors of the ship. The Valley Forge was actually named after an aircraft carrier which had been decommissioned, and they used the interiors of this decommissioned aircraft carrier, which was scrapped after the movie was made, by the way, to give that realistic inside. That was actually their combat information center that they used in there, that they repainted and put some
worked out
lights
perfectly.
in. It did. It had the
it
right
really
look to
did.
it, and it was an influence probably for Ridley Scott whenever they were doing Alien, who gave the same kind of closed quarters submarine looking ship in Alien. And
yet another influence of this film, film, the lived, because we always think about Star Wars as having that lived in look. And I think one of a really good article on a strange magazine, it's called Space and Economics magazine. Really good article, critique, goes over the film, and I think they mentioned that the lived in look. And we always think of a Star Wars, but actually it tracks back to this film. I mean, and you talk about a lived in look at the end. All the meals are all over the place. He's lived there. He hadn't cleaned up in months.
Ever.
And yeah, ever. Yeah, I mean, he's got bigger fish to fry, but still, it's the fried fish is all over the place, and the cantaloupes and everything. So yeah, but it's definitely and yeah, that completely influences Alien. So this film is seminal. I mean, just in influencing the amazing influence it has. It just
Yeah.
is incredible. Even
And that, of
yeah,
course, was it was the first film that had the broken model kits to do it.
yes,
The exterior models of the Valley Forge and the other ships were 27 feet long,
right.
and they had they were a steel frame, but they also had about, I forget how many model kits had been taken apart and used for detailing on it.
I
Some
want to
of
say at least
tanks.
250, but I could see
Yeah,
800 between 250. And they when I've seen some graphics of that, they'll show tank models like the and
yeah,
the and I guess that kind of made yeah tank model kind of industrial looking models. You know when they go out to do that, you're thinking, okay, as I love models, and it's what kind of
yeah.
models do you buy? The tank models were they always illustrate with that, and yeah, they use that 27 feet long is this model, and that's another thing too. It
Six
does
hundred
not
and
look
fifty. Yeah, it was steel,
tanks
wood, plastic, and six
or
hundred and
models.
fifty Army tank model kits.
God,
Unfortunately, they
that
couldn't store it, and it was destroyed in the mid 70s. One of the greenhouse domes was saved for a museum in Seattle.
oh, thank goodness, thank goodness, because the
Two of the
greenhouse don't.
domes. So,
Yeah, this model is is not too. You know, it's funny. We think about 2001, and you think about yeah, it's a functional design. Sort of, not sleek necessarily. Like the Enterprise is functional but also sleek,
yeah.
or the ship in 2001 in its own way has got a sleek. This is not sleek. This is deep space functional,
It
and
also seems to have
apparently he
influenced
was
the Eagle transporters in Space 1999. This exterior pipework that they had on it looks
right.
very much like those.
And that comes from what the World's Fair in 1999, or not 1999, but the World's Fair in 1970 or something from Barcelona. There's a Barcelona. There are these towers that when
Yeah,
you look at the towers and you can see the kind of geodesic domes that are built into this tower from an artist from Spain, and you look at that tower with those balls in it, the kind of geodesic balls, then just turn that sideways, and you got the ship. And Trumbull said that absolutely inspired him. And also, there's a something like the Climatron in Missouri is another existing. Apparently, I don't. You know, there was an experiment on what it would be like to live in deep space called Earth 2, that went and where people actually lived in this thing for two
yes,
years, and so
I
that
remember
kind of
that.
yeah right and this movie kind of leads to that, but what inspired both of
They
them
wanted to do something like that. It was before Earth 2 was created, but there was another place that was similar, and they wanted to film there, but the budget prevented it, and so they used an aircraft hangar
right.
the gardens.
Okay, you said now
Now, I
say that
think I
again. An
know where
aircraft,
yeah, it's an aircraft hangar, and I can tell you where that is. That's running for locations.
right, for the aircraft. The
Van Nuys Airport.
oh my goodness,
My
Van
brother
Nuys,
used
that's
to live in Van Nuys.
ah that's yeah geodesic domes. And I was at Huey Louie, and hang on, I was looking there. It is. It's called the Expo Tower from the 1970 World's Fair in Japan.
Hmm.
That was the influence for
Okay.
yeah. You turn, and then the other place it was. Let's see where I was going. Yeah, Missouri. It's called the Climatron Dome, and that's at the Missouri Botanical Gardens. And then you're right.
Yeah.
There was another place where. They kind of in a garden place physically they wanted to shoot, but they couldn't afford going there, so they make the models. And one thing I'd heard, and I wondered if you had heard of that, the domes themselves were repurposed B-29 cockpit windows. And I saw that one place, but I have not seen that. I'm just not sure I can, knowing what a B-29, yeah, and basically
Yeah,
the idea was
that
that
would
they
be
had
much
found,
smaller, I would think. But
I would think,
yeah,
yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm talking like the big window at the end where the bombardier
right,
can look out, and
yeah,
they kind of implying that they found those. I'm sure they used not only got tank models, but they found all sorts of stuff in that
yeah,
old aircraft carrier that could industrial looking stuff they could make a model with. But I'm going to have to do more research to see if those are B-29. Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
sure if that's
That might be
quite
interesting.
accurate. But
Interesting. The ships were named. Valley Forge was all of the other ships that they mentioned: Yellowstone, Acadia, Blue Ridge, Glacier, and Mojave were all based
right,
on national parks.
national
And they
park.
changed the name of the main ship because it was in tribute to the fact that they could film aboard the old Valley Forge, and so they called their ship the Valley Forge
That is
after
really
the
neat.
filming location.
I love that idea, and I
Yeah,
love the names of the domes. The domes are incredible. What did you think? So you've got the model itself, 20s, and if you look up the Expo Tower, like I just viewers, if they go to the Expo Tower or go to the site, then you can see that tower. It's so clear that becomes a ship. But then you've got to add the domes. And what
yeah,
did you think of the domes as a model? Because they the other thing is I've heard they used a lot of real trees in the production in their own dome when Bruce Dern would be Lowell would be messing
yeah.
around that those a lot of those were real trees. For some reason, you could see some real trees. I thought some of them were a little artificial looking. What did you think? I may be wrong on that. And then
I don't know how many real trees they used, but I'm certain that they did some. It's probably cheaper in some cases to get real saplings
yeah,
than to create them. And they could have done the Gilligan's Island. Here it comes, the Gilligan's Island thing, where when you see them on the island,
we had to do it.
most of the background, there's only a few actual trees there, and the rest of it is a painted backdrop. So
Right. There's- right, and with apparently they did use real trees. Apparently, keeping them alive was a real issue. They were
yeah,
constantly trading them out. They would even when they would start to go to die, they decided to go ahead and shoot with some of them, and then just shoot out of order so that when the shoot a scene later on when the
yeah.
trees are dying anyway. And so it's funny. You always think about what defines your shooting schedule, and sometimes it's having an actor. Like if Bruce Dern was only available for a week in this film, then you shoot around Bruce Dern.
Yeah.
Here, the trees were dying, and so they figure production schedule around some of the trees.
Yeah, they
But
shot the whole film in only 32 days though. And
that's amazing.
that's another thing of the experiment and the budget on all that. So that
You know,
was part of that. Something else I wanted to mention before we get too far away from it. We're going back to the drones. They were also the influence for Wall-E. You remember Wall-E?
of course, right? Absolutely, and all these people who were influenced absolutely pay tribute to this film. They say this film, yes, Wally, indeed, the creators of Wally, absolutely. Uh, you know, the,
They were the
salute
ones that
this
were able
film.
to prove that you could have a mechanical device have the same effect as a character.
Yes,
Where
I get.
in the same way, I mean, that was a wonderful thing about R2. R2 didn't look like a human shaped robot, and yet he had so much personality. And these two drones, we see three in the beginning, but eventually two for most of the rest of the film, have a lot of personality by just body language, and
By just body.
that's a
Yeah,
tribute to the people who controlled them, but also the whole concept that all you have to do is react to them in the same way that in Castaway, where the
yeah.
volleyball seemed to have a personality when it was just a volleyball with a face painted on it.
That's exactly right. That's it. Yeah, that's exactly. And having said, I know the volleyball didn't have a waddle in a sense, but that waddle that R2 had and the waddle that the robots of this film are keys to it. Oh God, and not only, and the way they would, their hands would be underneath, the arms, and the way they control that, but then also just some purely mechanical stuff. Like, and R2 had this purely mechanical stuff, like the little eye kind of thing that would move around on R2 and look, or the thing that could move, or in this case, the hydraulic arms were amazing in this thing. And
Yeah, well,
the
R2 had
arm,
that too. And he could push to push a button or to hook into the computer terminal and things like this, and they just had them folded up in him most of the time, and they did with these two actually.
that's exactly right. And then you had I'm guessing his father, being such an engineer, was probably there was basically another robotic device. They didn't necessarily give it a personality, but ran the pool table and actually could make shots on
Yeah,
the circular pool table, which was
that's impressive to
yeah,
look at even now. I mean, imagine something like
that
that.
is absolutely and the way that the arms move is the mechanical nature, and it's fast and hydraulically controlled. Probably off screen, imagine they're using anything they could. There might have been some arms connected to the mechanical arms, but still, it absolutely works.
It
And
could be radio control stuff. Radio control
yeah,
planes were popular around that time. So the controllers, which were about the size of,
oh,
I don't
big
know, what
walk.
does everybody have? Anything I would mention right now, it doesn't exist anymore, like a CD
Yeah,
player.
exactly. At least this size.
Like a game, almost like a game controller, but a little bit bigger.
Exactly. A big old game.
I knew I'd
Yeah,
get there.
control. Yeah, would have been, yeah, and they would have been off screen. Just, there's not from what I can see, there's this movie has been released on DVD and Blu-ray, and I think one of the issues has a lot of features, but I think they were working so hard on such a small budget. There's not a lot of behind the scenes
There's not.
photography on it. No,
There's not.
no, but the little snippets you see are just amazing. One little snippet, basically, and a video was describing how they did the front projection, and that was where you'd have the ship in space, and basically everything's going on the film at the same time, instead of the film being shot and with parts of the areas darkened out, and then you re-expose that same film like you would with matte work. Instead, this was being shot at the same time with a method called front projection. And the front projection,
Which is a very old process. Yeah.
You're right. It's not rear projection, but front projection. An old process, but there's kind of a lack of a beam splitter. The camera at the same time, it's getting like a front view. The ship's in front of it. The camera's filming that, but at the same time, there's kind of a beam splitter. And from the side, almost like a mirror. Here, I'll do it better this way. Almost like a mirror. It's seeing like Saturn.
It works like a teleprompter does. On one side, you see a mirror. On the other side, you can look through it.
Well put. That's exactly. It works like a teleprompter. So we see the composite image, and that's what the camera saw. So it was, instead of being processed a couple of times, and of course, this is before computer graphics, it's in one shot, a very old technique. In one shot, it's seeing the stars and the ship. Of course, you gotta, and they did use some of that early computer control for the camera and the ship, for moving the camera. So it incredibly moves smoothly around the ship, and the ship doesn't move. The camera moves in all these shots. So the camera's moving to give it the illusion that the ship is moving, and at the same time, Saturn is in the background, and that looks like. I love that stuff.
They wanted to do that for 2001, and they could not figure out how to do it reasonably and believably. And they'd figured it out by the time this film came out, and did that scene just because they couldn't do it in 2001.
I wonder if it was because, it's only 2 years before, or 3 years, but I wonder if it's because the motion control for the camera had not been perfected. Because
I think so.
And so they end up having to use some basically blue screen for 2001, and or green screen we call it now. But this stuff, it just looks so amazing.
Yes.
And especially and then going through the rings of Saturn. I don't think I've ever seen. Here it is. This movie's 60 years old, and I haven't seen an effect like that. Or the movie's what 50? It's let's see, 50 years old,
Yeah.
and I have not seen an effect like going through Rings of Saturn. I can't. It looks so tangible and real. I got to look that up. I was reading about the front
Yeah.
projection, but I haven't seen a lot on what they use to go through the Rings of Saturn.
I'm just told
Yeah,
it was a very hard effect, and they couldn't do it for
yeah,
2001,
very,
and they figured out how to do it for this one. So that's kind of interesting there.
yeah.
On another point, would you believe? Have you seen? There were something like 17 other actors they considered before Bruce Dern, and I would
No,
ask you, can you imagine anybody else but Bruce Dern pulling off the part like that?
no, oh no, no. It's kind of weird. Jack Nicholson comes to mind, but but
DeForest Kelley. I
no.
promise you, DeForest Kelley was considered because they wanted somebody that was kind of a grumpy old botanist. And they thought, grumpy old, that would work for DeForest Kelley.
It would have worked great. That one, to tell you the truth, I actually could see that. Although, there's the part that only Bruce Dern brings is, or at
Yeah.
least it's so disturbing. And of course, another plot spoiler when he kills the other three guys.
Yeah.
And one is he's kind of fighting for his own life in a sense, but yet he's gonna kill the guy. He's got to save the last remaining, and basically in the plot about 30 minutes into the film, 20 minutes into the film, just as Bruce Dern is hoping they're going to return these habitats that have been floating in space back to Earth. And we need to talk about what Earth is because it's kind of interesting, but back to Earth where there's no vegetation at all. He thinks they're going to bring it back and start reforestation. No, instead, the
No,
incoming
they've
message
paved over
is,
the entire Earth, and it's 74 degrees. And
yeah, turned Earth into a parking lot. That's and it's 74 degrees and there's no poverty and no disease and everybody has a job. Which it sounds idyllic in a way,
except that
but
it really wouldn't work that way. There'd be no oxygen left. But
exactly how is it working? There's no vegetation. Yeah, it's. I know you and I both know of a professor we worked with who would have enjoyed that habitat. He did not like walking on anything green, no grass. and,
that's true.
and we admire him and he's brilliant. Doc was absolutely brilliant, but he wouldn't step on a blade of grass, not to respect the grass. He just didn't want to get any bacteria.
I remember when he retired and we said, "Are you thinking of coming back and teaching part-time as we're doing now?" And he said, "Yes, I think so." And we said, "Well, what if it rains?" He said, "Well, maybe I won't come back after all." And he didn't.
He didn't, because he hated the rain. He canceled class, and any type of when you had to getting across the campus was a journey. He would find
Yes.
he wanted it enclosed and air conditioned in 75 degrees all the
Yes.
time.
So he would have been happy on that earth.
And living where we lived, there's something to that.
Yeah.
But
Larry Hagman was another recommendation for this role. I for no way can see him in that.
who was again?
Larry Hagman.
Oh, no.
This of course, 10 years before JR.
Right, but he had JR inside him all along. So
I mean, maybe because he played an astronaut in I Dream of Jeannie, they thought he could do that. I don't know.
Wow, those are some wow.
Yeah.
Well, any others that come to
I
mind?
don't have any others that you would know, or
Those are the
that
big,
I would know.
yeah, the big. Well, we're kind of getting into, and this film. There's so many levels to this film. I mean, the effects. There's the films that it inspired. There's the effects that to this day look so unique. Like I mentioned, Saturn Rings, and just even that front projection business. I can see why they wanted to use it for 2001. But then it's got some strangeness to it. Part of it is, I think, Douglas Trumbull has never directed before, where he's really comfortable is working with special effects. That's what he really likes. He not
obviously that's the
necessarily
best part of this film, and they kind of let Bruce Dern just run away with it, as far as I can
Right.
tell.
and yet everything I've read about Douglas Trumbull, his forte is not necessarily interacting with people, and yet he makes an incredibly humanist film.
Yes.
But our protagonist is really conflicted. Not often your humanist kills three other members of the crew, and even when he has the robot bury them, the robots bury him. And I thought, no, you should be doing that yourself. You did this, you should be. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, he has the robots dig his grave. He says a prayer to them, and in the prayer he says, I did they were not my friends, but I like them. And he kind of acknowledges that he's done something awful. Well, that something awful is killing them. And how did you reconcile that, Professor B, that what had happened?
Uh, well, I think that he was nuts.
Yeah.
You know, when it
Had
comes
lost
down
it.
to it, that his whole
Just so driven.
he was so driven, and he was so much of a, shall we say, space cadet to begin with, that it was predictable that he might do it, and that he wasn't all that mentally stable. Now, this is another thing that a theme of the movie we haven't touched upon is loneliness. Now, here
Yeah.
you're having they haven't said how long they have been on this ship. So, I mean, if you're on a ship in close quarters with four guys, how long is it going to take before you want to kill everybody else? And so I think that kind of happened there. And then afterwards, he's having to deal with the loneliness of it and makes
Right.
friends with the drones as a result. He names them and then plays poker with them, and then and tries his best to assuage his guilt at the same time of just dealing with the fact that there's not another human living with him.
And there was a tremendous amount of guilt as the film goes along. You're looking at, wow, this person just did this. That's a lot. How do we as viewers deal with that? But then, right, he's not balanced to begin with, and unstable to begin with, and then and then has the drones, and it's amazing how much he actually pulls himself together at the end of the film to make some logical decisions. I mean, it feels so destructive of Earth, and we never see the Earth Authority, whoever they are. It's all not seeing them. Larry Hagman would have been perfect for Earth Authority. No, just nuke them, boys. Nuke them and come home. We're done. He would have been perfect, but we never see that character.
What's interesting was they didn't need these are cargo ships. They didn't need the ships. They were going to scrap them when they got home anyway. It was basically just to bring the astronauts home. And of course, he doesn't think of killing himself and the injured robot until someone is sent to rescue him. He doesn't want to go back.
Right. He does not want to go back, and he basically put in a very uncomfortable position. And he wants to save the forest, the last remaining forest, and Lord knows they may have gone. But so he finds a way to remove himself and the droid, who I get, you're something that was damaged to the point where it probably would have expired and left the other droid alone. I think it was critically wounded, the droid. So he takes its life too. And you don't see this, but you kind of gather that he didn't destroy the rescue ship, but he makes it pointless. The rescue ship is like, there's nothing to rescue now. And so they're going to turn around, and then the forest can go on its way. And and it just, I mean, that's a powerful ending. It's rated G, but that I've heard stories, of kids who were like 10 when they were watching it, and they were profoundly affected. It was really hard to watch.
We had talked about before that what was the second Indiana Jones movie brought about the PG-13 rating, and that was brought about because of the way that the film was really too much for a young audience, and in the same way it was just at the beginning of the time, and this was rated PG at the time when GP at the time, before they came out with the PG rating. and realized there that a G-rated picture is considered a children's movie.
Right.
It was starting to be that way, and they realized that they needed to have generally things that would be G pictures for adults to be PG.
And it's funny, GP did not last long, but I remember that rating. Then they changed it to PG, and then PG encompassed a wide range. It could go just a little bit harder than a G, all the way to almost a soft R.
Yes.
And then right, and then
Little Darlings comes to mind. It's a bunch of 12-year-olds trying to lose their virginity, and that's a PG picture. That probably shouldn't have. Well, actually, it was an R-rated film. They didn't show anything in it that would violate the law, but the still the adult ideas in it, they decided to give an R, even though it was really kind of a PG picture.
Right.
So the ratings board was always a big secret, but most people thought that it was a bunch of bored housewives who were actually the ones that were deciding what the ratings are going to be, because sometimes you could make little adjustments. It was going to be a GP film, and they actually cut a scene or two so they could get the G for it.
And I've heard Newt Minow helped gather them together. And
that's true. This is what really would happen on Gilligan's Island. Gilligan would go crazy and kill everybody.
The other thing it also thinking of Bruce Dern's character on there. I can't get that Gilligan out of my head now. But this we've now gone to a PG.
This is a PG-13 review. Excuse me.
We haven't said anything untoward, but the Gilligan's loose. But the other thing that got me was. I've lost it now. Let's see. We're talking about Bruce Dern's character. Whoops. Hopefully it'll come back. Gilligan won that one. But it was something to do with Bruce Dern's character and the extremities. It just is an interesting character there. What did you think about the music? And
Peter Schickele, who was known as PDQ Bach, who did satirical classical music. If you've never heard of him, Google the 1712 Overture.
Okay.
And what they do is, you know how the 1812 Overture goes, they replace that with Pop Goes the Weasel.
That's the 1712.
Yeah, and that's the 1712 Overture. It's available on CD and probably find it online. Anyway, so he is, of course, a very studied musicologist, and so he was able to do these parodies, but did the actual music here. And he was known to do music for children's records in the early 60s. So this was probably before PDQ Bach came into existence when he was doing this. And of course they had, I think, 2 songs by Joan Baez on there that had, of course, the ecological undertones of this. I don't know how much they had to pay for the licensing of that, but that was probably the most expensive thing in the film.
I've heard Universal wanted that, and that Douglas Trumbull did not. And on the other hand, I've also heard Douglas Trumbull really liked the folk songs. And I think they helped them make the movie. Some of the reviewers will get critical of it and say, "Oh, this just even dates it more." They'll kind of complain that some things are kind of on the nose, and they are. There's some things that where instead of letting some sort of mystery be, or the movie is saying, "This is exactly what I want you to think," and this film does that at times. But it also has some great visuals, and it's funny, as much as those folk songs can kind of be on the nose, this is what you need to feel, they somehow work. I just like them. There's one shot I just love, and this is the cinematographer apparently worked with Douglas Trumbull to help him direct. The cinematographer knows how to lay out a scene, 3-shot, 2-shot, reverse shots, make everything work. and even so, you can still feel some little bit of discontinuity. Some scenes feel a little clunky, but one shot that's just incredible is when Lowell looks at the Earth in the telescope, which is inside a dome, and and then all of a sudden, and of course, this should imply to him that we're losing our sunlight, because not only is the sun getting farther, the Earth is too. But he gets the Earth in focus, and then it just disappears. The Earth is disappearing.
Yeah.
It's just a neat shot. That's and express, and instead of telling us exactly what to think, it lets us see. It visually tells us information, which,
well,
and the film does that well.
That is something that probably has come up in your movie class. You're not supposed to explain what's happening. You're supposed to show what's happening.
To show what, yeah. And this film, yeah, sometimes this film explains even a little too much. Part of that is because he's by himself. Who are you going to talk to? And you need somebody to interact with, so that it's just not a person by themselves telling you what to feel. Then you can have a little conversation, and that works so well with the robots. And that poker game was a lot of fun. That really worked. And they were even cheating.
The exaltation of being beat at poker.
Yeah, to be beat. Yes, that worked incredibly well.
Although I have to say, one of my favorite scenes was the operating room, where he basically programs the drones to operate on his leg, which he's injured.
Right. And exactly. And he's and that's, really apparent. I thought that the operating scene was good. For some reason, I thought maybe we should see a little bit more of exactly what went wrong, so that we know that the operation's necessary. He's limping around, but part of me was going, oh, he'll heal up, but he actually needed that operation, and that scene worked out great. He programmed them, and then the little, cutting through the pants, and then it's going to cut through the legs. The little blade really worked well.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was kind of clever. And when I first saw it, first time, that he said, you'll do the operation and you'll assist, and puts the cartridges in them, and I'm thinking, how is he going to assist? But I didn't realize what the terms of art are for that kind of thing. You always have an assist in an operating room.
And so and that's a good, he definitely was the medic for the crew. And so, not necessarily the botanist, knew some things, but loved the idea of keeping the Earth alive. But he was actually, to me, more trained as a medic, when you think about it.
Yeah. Which makes it even more disturbing when he sacrifices all the people for the forest.
That's a good point. And one thing that also makes it a little bit more understandable is the cutaway shots to the animals, because not only is Larry Hagman down there he's not on Earth, but I can just see him being the controller. Yeah, that's his part. He's on Earth and saying, nope, you boys come home. And they got all those beautiful animals, including a hawk that flies over on his arm. That took some work. Bruce Dern had to get some training. Holds up his arm. Here comes a hawk. And it just, when you see the animals, you're going, man, they are sacrificing so much. And, it's not human life still, but it really, I love those shots of the animals. Gives you a different dimension.
They didn't show Earth Authority, but they did have Joseph Campanella, who was the captain of one of the other ships. And I thought, he could have been the general in charge.
Yeah, he would be perfect for that.
The other person I want to point out here is Cliff Potts. He was in everything in around 1970, and then his career went nowhere after that.
Oh no!
I mean, where have we seen Cliff Potts? But he was in a dozen one-season shows on NBC. He played, a young dad or a young scientist or a young something, and he was in this film. I don't know if he's been in any other films.
He won, and he was the one character that kind of cared for, because really, the other characters kind of made fun of Bruce Dern of Lowell.
Sure.
And Cliff Potts was the one that would kind of say, no, lay off him. The guy's, that's who he is. Just let him be. And he definitely, you're right. He was in a ton of things, and I don't know. That's a good point. What happened to him?
Yeah, he had 69 credits as an actor, according to this, and they were all, just kind of bit parts.
Wow.
Which is a shame because he did seem to have that it factor. He played
Well,
an
yeah, and
admiral in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and that's the last I think I saw of him. He had been in 4 or 5 things after that, but small stuff in small movies. Matlock,
right, right. If
Baywatch.
he would not have walked off the set had he been Flash Gordon, and I can see
Yeah,
he would have stayed put and done a good job. He's kind of got that spot. Now he was really good in this film. The other actors were too, but he really was strikingly good. The And it's kind of ironic that he's the one that ends up having the direct confrontation, and the other two are sent on the dome, which and the effects of the model effects of each dome separating was fantastic too. All the detritus that comes out when each dome separates from the ship,
yeah.
the slow motion just works incredibly well. Yeah, one thing, Douglas Trumbull, he'd worked on 2001, and he viewed, and there's a really good uh, editor and writer from the British Film Institute magazine named Mark Kermode, and he loves this film. He's written his own book. It just is, and it's funny. Mark Kermode can be kind of cynical at times. He's an excellent reviewer. I mean, it's like Roger Ebert in a way, but he just saw this film when he was 10, fell in love with it, and he likes it more than 2001. And so does Douglas Trumbull. When Douglas Trumbull was working on 2001, he felt it was just a little. It was cold, and
It really
and
was. It was very sterile.
right. And this film gets into the weeds, literally the dirt, the weeds, and the humanity of the forest. The
Once
human
again, I
connection.
think that was the big influence on Star Wars, on of course Alien, and everything that followed it. Where instead of having the white, absolutely clean, sterile field kind of ships, which are probably more the idea that they had before then. They have basically like the lower decks of a military vessel,
Right. Well, and there they are. Is the
and there
perfect
they
way.
are. Yeah.
That's funny. You think about that synergy. What's he looking for? What kind of world building is he doing? And the world building is just great. And it deals with that aircraft carrier. And Dow, which was amazing. We were talking about this before the show. Dow Chemical, American Airlines, a lot of these companies, they were wanting to be seen as connected to the environment. Dow was more connected to napalm and Agent Orange than anything else in at this
Well, yeah,
point.
they used to have a commercial. Dow used to have a commercial saying, when you graduate, come to work for Dow because you'll be able to help people and grow more food and make the world a better place. And Jay Leno
Right.
had a joke on that. He said, I know how's going to happen. This graduate goes in his first day at Dow, and they say, well, we're going to back burner the helping people and making the world a better place. We want you to go to work on the new death gel.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of, yeah, and that kind of reminded me. That's what I was thinking of too. You get to Bruce Dern and the people, and I could just see Dow. Yeah, Dow saying, but first before you work on that death gel, we've got to jettison these plants. But on the other hand,
That's right.
Dow really they wanted to be, so they donated all sorts of whatever it is, the kind of latex or plastic mold making material.
Yes.
That and so
Yeah,
they used,
they had a weed witch, which is a brand name that they used for his actual weeding. They used one of their weed witch
we
tools,
use that.
and
Yeah,
they had a Coca-Cola thing. I didn't see them drinking Coke anywhere, but
me neither. But it's prominent back there.
my
There's
guess is a lot of those were not as much money things as they were providing some of the products. So I'm thinking maybe the craft table was helped out by the Coca-Cola company and
right.
some of the other things.
they thank them all at the end, and
Yeah,
they thank the sponsors at the end, and it adds a touch of reality too.
it
But yeah,
does.
there's but some of the big plastic forms, not on the model, but inside the walls, the corridors of the aircraft carrier came from Dow too. Some of the where they were
Mhm.
making just the looks like big kind of almost like vacuum form type plastic structures that they walk through.
They had to do
Apparently,
some of that because, of course, the inside of this decommissioned ship had all the sensitive equipment taken out of it, and so it
right.
would have looked pretty much gutted. So they had to put some things back. But I think between what they did with the plastics and repainting that, they made it look very believable as a spaceship.
Right. Right. It did, and yeah, that kind of lived-in functional look all works, makes it looks believable. And can you imagine how hot it was? There was no AC on this ship when they were shooting. It's sitting there in the water, and it's
Yeah,
hot inside. It's enclosed, and apparently the actors and the robots could only be there, 20 minutes, and then they
yeah.
just start burning up.
Well, Bruce Dern had a way to cool off. The where he went to swim, they didn't have in the budget a heater, so that was basically ice water he was swimming in.
That's
I'm thinking he might have been okay with the hot.
yeah, I bet, yeah. the I realize the thought about Bruce Dern too is that you realize the government just will start a project like this. People become. I love projects like this. I love half baked science fictional real stuff. Not necessarily half baked. It can be fully baked, but stuff that's just cutting edge, exciting. People will devote their lives to it, and the government will just stop the funding like that. And this makes you think about what happens to those people when they stop the funding. I mean, there's so many interesting projects in the Cold War. There was was it lighter, like heavy lifting machines? It's called Dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Was an old Cold War. There are tons of Cold War projects. If NASA had all sorts of projects. Even
Oh yeah,
recently, there's the idea of it was called the Gateway orbiting station on the moon, kind of like an ISS, very small ISS on the moon, and that just got canceled this spring. And you just think about the contractors, the scientists, and they're just like, nope, not going to do it. And you kind of feel for you think about Bruce Dern,
well,
his
that
life
that happened in
work.
the early '70s with the Apollo system when Nixon
Right.
became president. He considered the space program to be Lyndon Johnson's legacy, and so he
Right.
really wasn't interested in it and
Nope.
canceled the last three moon landings. One of them
Yes.
became Skylab, and
That's right.
there are a couple that just never went in orbit.
But no, that's exactly right. Skylab, but yeah, they turned the third stage of the Saturn 1B into a space station. A brilliant
Yeah,
idea. And yeah,
I actually saw it at the Smithsonian and walked in it, and the whole thing was about the size of a restroom stall. It was amazing just how tiny that was. And I suppose if you float around, you have a little bit more room, but it was as far as any place to stand, there wasn't much.
my second cousin, of course, you get a second cousin in NASA. Everybody, you flock to him like he's your brother, your favorite brother. And but everybody's favorite brother was Bill Pogue, and he went up on Skylab 3. He was my second cousin. We all went to the launch, and the Skylab by then was already up there. He was the third
Mm-hmm.
mission, and his mission had, I think, 90 days. And you're right, the thing is tiny and small, and they it was a challenge. I mean, NASA was making them work hard. They needed some days, like some time off, like 12 hours off. And but it was exciting. And yeah, and that became Skylab. And when you think about what we've really done in space, when you think of it, or the ISS or Mir, they all look way more like the silent running ship than they do Star Trek.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
or they look a lot like the Millennium Falcon. When it's all functional
Yeah.
and real.
Well, once again, Star Trek was 10 years before this, really, almost. And
That's right.
they were trying to depict a uh, they were influenced probably more by 2001 than let's see, when was 2001 done?
70. So Star Wars kind of was
19.
influenced by Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Star Trek, yeah, Forbidden Planet, and some of the serials. Buck Rogers, I
right,
think, contributed to that. But the whole idea was
right.
not a very military-like looking place, but rather just kind of a place where you could spend a long time.
Right.
And so the inside of the Enterprise, for instance, was, while it looked high tech for its time, did not have all of this layering and detail that they decided needed to be happening ever since.
Oh, and the detail makes so much of a difference. It just, yeah. And much as I love the classic series, anytime they would bring up some more detail, it would just always add more. When they had real food that they'd be eating in a scene,
Yeah.
or real coffee that Yeoman Rand would bring in, that just added so much. And these movies, boy, the details there. It's just they just build on that.
Well, it was all in Alien where they're having breakfast together. They
Yes.
have a mess. I mean, you can't. There's everything in before that was always so neat. You have a little tray and you eat off the tray and then you put it back and it goes away. And then
Right.
in Alien, they have half empty cups of coffee. They're smoking. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty nasty place.
That's
So
exactly right.
that's what this started. So I guess we can give this a lot of credit for stylistically
Yes.
changing the paradigm on how science fiction films were made.
You know what's funny? I can't remember anybody smoking in any scene in the Andromeda Strain, which Douglas Trumbull had worked on. The woman scientist, brilliant woman scientist, is a smoker, but
Yeah.
she can't smoke when she goes into Wildfire, the facility. But I don't remember anybody smoking in this film, and
No.
maybe that's something that you can't do on the Earth of 75 degrees and no disease and no poverty.
Or maybe it was just too expensive to put in the film.
Yeah.
They
Exactly.
wouldn't allow them to put their brand on the bulkhead.
Yeah.
So how many Gilligans you want to give this one?
Now, are we based on 5 Gilligans or 4 Gilligans or 10 Gilligans?
I'm not really going to be narrowed down that much.
When I started watching this film, and the on the nose stuff was getting me, but I am repenting, and I'm gonna give it 4.5 Gilligans out
Wow.
of 5. Out of 5.
Out of
Because I
five,
just
okay.
and so it's so plus some of it's the influences it had. You just
Yeah, I would give it 4 as a out of 5 for the influences. I think that was good. Bruce Dern's acting, I mean,
Yeah.
he's chilling,
Wow.
but
Yes.
it was great. And so yeah, I think it deserves that. It is not something that is easy to watch, understandably,
No.
for many reasons of the the guilt that it puts on as to what we're doing to our plants and trees, but also in watching someone who has just lost his mind, that
Yeah.
is taking it all in that to that extreme. So there you have it.
Yeah, and just think, this is hopefully we'll get things fixed, but you can just think of the time there, 1970. This will be a warning, so that by 2000 we'll have things on more fixed. And
Oh
no,
yeah,
it's
worked
still a
out that way,
warning.
didn't it? Yeah.
Wow,
I think we better quit while we're behind. So
you got it.
thank you so much, Professor. We will talk to you again. What are we going to talk about next week? We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Is what we were going to do.
Aha!
I have a piece of paper, and on my piece of paper,
Yes.
we were talking about that film with Brainstorm, were we not?
Oh, Brainstorm, Douglas Trumbull's other film to
Douglas
direct.
Trumbull's under film, since we're into
Yeah,
kind of Douglas Trumbull. So Brainstorm. How
Brainstorm it
about?
is.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds great. That sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, that might be fun to talk about. So,
It's very similar in a lot of ways. Definitely got some AI connections. Oh, it sounds
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
okay, we'll try that one out. So,
All right.
thank you for joining us, and we will be back tomorrow with another review of Star Trek. Strange New Worlds. Have you been keeping up with that, by the way? I don't know if you've seen the
I
last
am
episode
3 episodes
with the
in,
with
and
the.
your
You've seen the
reviews are
puppets
great.
yet?
But no, I have not. I'm
Oh,
the last.
okay.
Yeah.
I wait to hear your reaction to that one. Okay, so another Star Trek review tomorrow, and then we're back with Farscape on Tuesday, and next week we will have Brainstorm. So don't go far.